draw a line here. The next set of our notes, we're going to talk about quartiles. Quartiles kind of sounds like quarters. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're breaking the data up into fourths. Quartiles, you're going to split the set of numbers into quarters. Numbers into quarters. They call that fourths, splitting it into fourths. So the best way to split them into quarters, first off, they have to be least to greatest in order to split them into quarters. You can't just randomly split them. Then you're going to find the median first. So that's your middle number. That's like finding 50%. So you're going to find the median first. That's halfway, half of the data. And then you're going to split the lower part in half, and then you're going to split the upper part in half. So it's like split it in half first, and then split the lower part in half, and then split the upper part in half. And we're going to do some examples here to help you. So we're going to use the same data set we had up above, and I'm going to rewrite those so that we're not having to look back up above. We're going to call it set A again was 4, 10, 12, 13, 14, 18, 20. And then set B, we're just copying again from up above, which was 2, 7, another 7, 9, 10, 15, 20, and 23. So how do you split it into fourths? First off, we said find the median, which is the middle. We kind of already did that up above. We found our median. 13 was our middle number over here. We call this the median. We also call it quartile 2. Some people get that kind of confused. You find the median. Then you're going to split the lower part in half and find its middle. So the way I would do that is I would cover up the top part. So when I'm looking at the lower part, I see 4, 10, and 12. So what's the middle of that? Well, the middle number would be 10 because there's only 3 numbers there, so the one in the middle. So then 10 would be we call it the lower quartile or quartile 1. And then obviously here's your median or quartile 2, and so then you got to find out what your upper quartile is. So the way you find the upper is you cover up the bottom part, and then there's 3 numbers, which one's in the middle? 18, so this is what we call the upper quartile, or call it Q3. So quartiles go 1, 2, and 3, but you actually find 2 first, and then you come down and find 1, and then you find 3. So if you were to do the same thing with data set B, how does that differ just a little bit with B? Well, remember we were in the middle of some. So the median was right in the middle of 9 and 10. So let's just circle both and then kind of draw a line here. We said 9.5, or you could call it 9 1/2 was your median, or Q2, quartile 2. And so since it's right in between 2 numbers, I like to draw that line. So then how do you know what you should cover up? Well, when you're finding the lower quartile, you're going to cover up from the line this way. So you've got 2, 7, 7, and 9. Don't forget about the 9. So there's 4 numbers. You're looking at what's in the middle of those middle 2. Well, like you can kind of circle in what's the difference between 7 and 7, what's in the middle. Well, since they're the same number, 7 is your quartile 1 or lower quartile. So I'm going to call it lower or quartile 1, Q1. And then you have to do the same thing. You found the lower part. So now when you cover up the lower half of this line, there are 4 numbers up here, 10, 15, 20, and 23. What's in the middle of those 4? Something in the middle of 15 and 20. Circle them both and draw that line. What's in the middle? Well, in order to find the middle of those 2, you have to add those 2 together and then divide by 2 to figure out what's exactly in the middle. So when you add them together and you say 15 plus 20 is 35, and when you divide that by 2, because there's 2 numbers, you're going to get 17 1/2. So 17 and a half. So you can call it 17.5 or 17 and 1/2. So what you just found there is what we refer to as the upper quartile, or Q3. So it's almost easier when there's an odd number in the data set, because then you just find the numbers. When there's an even amount of numbers in the data set, you keep getting in between the two. So you have to add the two together and then divide by 2. Add these two together, divide by 2 to find right in the middle. This one was easy because they were both 7. And we'll work on that. That's a lot of information all at once, so we'll practice that. The next part we've got is inner quartile range. Inner quartile range, and you can't find the range until you find the quartiles, which is what we just did. Inner quartile range. We already know what range is. The range is the difference between the biggest and smallest. Inner quartile range is the difference between the upper quartile and the lower quartile. That's where we call Q3 minus Q1, the differences in the quartiles. So this is the difference, which also means to subtract. So subtract the difference between Q3 and Q1. So again, you can't find the quartiles if you don't put your numbers in least to greatest order. So we were often refer to this as Q3 minus Q1 equals IQR, inner quartile range. So that's the abbreviation you'll see for that. So what do you do to find inner quartile range? You subtract the lower quartile from the upper quartile. So we'll actually do that with set A and set B, so you get an example as well. Set A, now you're looking at this, Q3 minus Q1. Well, we've identified them and labeled them, so that makes it pretty easy. With set A, if we think about, all right, we need to do Q3 minus Q1. Fill in our blanks. What was our Q3? Our upper quartile was 18. Our lower quartile was 10. And if we subtract 18 from 10, the inner quartile range is 8. With set B, do the same thing, Q3 minus Q1 to get the inner quartile range. Fill in your blanks to solve. Let's see, this one we said was different. It was 17 and a half. And you have to subtract 7. That was Q3 minus Q1, which gives us 10 and a half. And I'm okay with using decimals or fractions here. So a lot of examples, we're going to do a lot of practice on this. This is not just a one-day assignment. We're going to be continuing to practice this over and over again. So your homework for this particular example, first off, the front of the worksheet, you're going to pick 2 story problems, and I want you to find the range, the mean, median, and mode. And then on the back, you're going to pick 6 problems, and you're going to find Q1, Q2, Q3, and inner quartile range. Remember, you actually find Q2 first, and then you split it in half to find 1 and 3, and then inner quartile range we said was Q3 minus Q1. You might need these notes out to help you. There's a lot of information in these, and to rewatch this video to help you with that particular homework assignment.